Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we have a beer that should be really quite interesting. This one was recommended to me by one of you guys following the channel. If I'm not mistaken, it was David Hughes from Ireland that recommended this one to me, saying that it was one of the best stouts that he's ever tried actually. So I think it should be a really interesting beer, this one. This was yet another one that I picked up from Glassbanken.se, so do check out their link in the description below. Danish prices, but you know, here in Sweden you will get some beers that you wouldn't normally get otherwise. So this beer is half Norwegian, half Brazilian. For the Norwegian side of things, we are going to go to the Lervig Aktiebryggeri from Stavanger once again, and this one is their 3-bean stout. So this guy comes in at 12% ABV, and it's brewed with cocoa, vanilla and Tonka beans, and it's a collaboration with Way Beer from Curitiba in Brazil. So yeah, a really quite highly rated Brazilian brewery involved in this beer too, and I think it was them that first introduced Tonka beans to the European craft beer scene. So very curious to see how this one turns out. It's always interesting when you get people recommending beers to you, particularly from breweries that you know quite well, but this is one that I hadn't actually heard of before until it was recommended to me. So again, a huge thank you to David for recommending this one to me. I do apologise if I've got the person wrong that's recommended this beer to me, but a huge shout out to Fabrizio Rossi, who is in Rio de Janeiro as well. He's been watching the channel for a good number of years, one of my very loyal Brazilian followers actually. But yeah, really looking forward to this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. It's very cool to be reviewing another Brazilian beer after quite a long time actually. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Lervig Aktiebryggeri, and it's the very first time actually that I'm encountering a beer from Way Beer, so hopefully I can add some more at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Norwegian beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for the Brazilian beers. This beer will of course appear in both of those lists since it's half and half, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Lervig Aktiebryggeri then, we'll start with the home brewery in this case. So as I've told you before, Lervig Aktiebryggeri are based in Stavanger in southwestern Norway, which is the main oil city over there. I studied chemistry in Aberdeen in Scotland, and Stavanger was where a lot of the kind of co-operations used to take place. But the Lervig Aktiebryggeri was founded back in 2003 after the Tohu brewery was sold to Carlsberg, and then subsequently production of the Tohu beers was moved down to Oslo. But for a while the Lervig Aktiebryggeri beers were brewed at Mouthfeel brewery in Tromsø, which is away up in the very north of Norway. But production of these beers was then moved to Hillevåg in Stavanger back in 2005. But the head brewer for Lervig is Mike Murphy, and he's been there since 2010. And prior to this, the brewery had actually been just making, you know, kind of plain light lager beers, but Mike moved them more in the direction of making the American style beers, and he played quite an important role in the Danish craft beer revolution. He collaborated with a good number of the quite famous brewers there, such as Mikael and Jeppe Bjerg, so Sean Hill, Andreas Kiesmeyer, and a few others that are quite prominent too. But he'd also worked for Birra del Borgo in Italy, but he now owns 5% of Lervig Aktiebryggeri, so he does have a big say in how things go for this brewery. But the main owner of the brewery is Christopher Stensrud, who owns 67% of the shares, and in total this brewery now exports 20% of all of the beers exported from Norway. They've become a very well-known name, along with the likes of Servicium and Amundsen and things like that. You know, the Norwegian craft beer scene has really been taking off over the last couple of years, and they've got a hell of a lot of little craft breweries popping up now. So very good times for craft beer if you are living in Norway. So yeah, definitely I need to review some more Norwegian beers for you on the channel, but I have been getting hold of a lot of the really nice Lervig ones that I would have wanted to try a couple of years ago and things like that. So you will see a lot of reviews from Lervig from me over the next little while. But yeah, a very well-known Norwegian brewery. They always do some really interesting stuff. Their stouts are really good, and I've had some very good IPAs from them as well. Just a very solid all-round brewery, this one, and probably one of the more recognisable Norwegian craft beer names these days. But that's all you really need to know about Lervig Aktiebryggeri for just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and as always, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that too. But let's move on to the Brazilian side of the beer then, down to the other part of my nose. So Way Beer are from Pinhais in Curitiba in Brazil, which is kind of in the southwestern part of the country. It's a little bit down from Rio de Janeiro. But the company was founded back in 2010 by Alessandro Oliveira and Alejandro Vinucar. And Alejandro is originally from Argentina, but he moved to Brazil at the age of 4. Apparently he studied psychology and then did postgraduate studies in business, and he worked in branding before he went on to be a part of Way Beer. But apparently he visited a brewery and was pleasantly surprised by how everything worked. He thought it was massively complicated to actually start up your own company and be a brewer, but he was pleasantly surprised at how kind of simple it seemed to him, and he was really keen from that point to kind of do it for himself. But he drew up a business plan and then needed someone who could actually coordinate the brewing side of the business, and coincidentally Alessandro Oliveira was a trained brewer, and he was looking for a partner that could deal with the management side of the company. So this partnership was pretty much a perfect fit, and today they've grown to be one of the most highly acclaimed craft breweries in Brazil. They're quite often attending beer festivals over here. I think they might have been over for the Mikkeller beer celebration, but they're very often over here in Europe taking part in beer festivals and stuff like that, and these guys are one of the more recognisable and bigger craft beer names in Brazil, from what Fabrizio was telling me. So yeah, hopefully I can try some of their own beers at some point, but in the meantime it is quite cool to see to try one of their collaboration beers with another quite well-known European brewery. So hopefully I can try a few of their IPAs and things like that. Brewery are particularly well known for barrel aging, particularly in the case of using some barrels that are used for Brazilian spirits too, so you will get some very unique barrel-aged beers from Way Beer, and apparently their IPAs and stuff are very good too. But yeah, that's all you really need to know at the moment. It's really cool to encounter Way Beer for the first time, and hopefully I can review more in the future. All the brewery links and stuff are in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that if you want to keep up to date with all the latest goings on there. But yeah, that's both breweries down then. Let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is a 12% Imperial Stout, and it's brewed with cocoa, vanilla and Tonka beans. I did have one beer from Aktiebryggeri here in Sweden that had Tonka beans, and they added this really interesting sweetness and almost, I'm sure it was very slightly spicy as well. The Tonka beans are really quite an interesting thing to add to an Imperial Stout, and it really kind of gives you a good depth of flavour actually. But yeah, vanilla, cocoa and Tonka bean stout, this one, or Imperial Stout I guess I should say. So there you can see quite nice artwork on this one, the 3 beans inside the person whose muscles are growing because of all the protein and stuff that you get from beans. But yeah, nicely presented artwork, this one. And I got this beer, as I said, from Glassbank and Punkt.se here in Sweden. So you pay Danish prices for these beers. It is a little touch pricey, but you will get things that otherwise you wouldn't normally get a hold of. And it was this beer that kind of inspired me actually to make that order, because I was told that it is supposed to be really damn good. But there is the Lervig Aktiebryggeri bottle cap on this one. If your beers from Lervig are in the bottle, most of the bottle caps will be quite similar to this one. Otherwise their beers do tend to be in cans. But let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. So yeah, I think this, is that saying it's bottled in 2017? I'm not sure. But yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on to the tasting then. You can smell some of the Tonka beans and the vanilla as you open this beer up. It's interesting, it's almost like a slightly spicy note, but it's very, very sweet at the same time. So yeah, as you can see, I think this beer, does it say a bottled date on it? I don't think it does actually. Let me just have a little quick look at that bottle cap again. I'm guessing with that level of carbonation, it's obviously not bottle conditioned, but yeah, it doesn't say 14th of January 2019, so yeah, it must have actually been fairly recently brewed, this one. But yeah, straight away when you open this beer up, you do get these, the vanilla and the Tonka beans come straight out at you. Not so much the chocolate, definitely for me it's the vanilla and the Tonka beans that are jumping out. And it's, the Tonka beans are really interesting. It's a slightly spicy, but slightly, almost slightly green kind of thing too. So a really interesting blend of aromas coming out of this one. But as you can see, and as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this one's poured a really dark ebony rosewood colour. It's got a nice kind of Coca-Cola edge to it. If you hold up the light, it looks like it's the same kind of colour as a Coca-Cola Pepsi Max kind of thing, which is what you would expect from an Imperial Stout. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of the head there. And there's a very thin layer of quite a dark, bubbly tan head there. It was more of a foamy head, that one, but obviously it disappeared very, very quickly. But this one, in terms of its appearance, nothing surprising when you consider that this one is an Imperial Stout, but a very, very nice looking beer, I have to say. And some of the aromas that are coming out of this one, just even out the top of the glass, are pretty damn interesting, I have to say. So let's take a closer look at that aroma then and just see how we get on. Oh, yeah. That one's really nice, actually. Yeah, the aroma on this beer is absolutely incredible. It's quite ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, it's what you'd expect. I mean, you know, you've got chocolate in there. It's kind of a milky chocolate, and I think it's the vanilla that's sort of giving it that impression. But again, you've got the vanilla and you've got the Tonka beans in there. It's all the three things that you'd expect, but at the same time, it's just ridiculously complex. I mean, the first thing I take in from this aroma is the vanilla, but then the Tonka beans kind of come in almost as a bit of a complexity of that. And it's almost like, they're not spicy, if you like, but it does almost give the same impression. It's almost the same kind of feel as if you smell like a chili stout and you just get the Tonka beans on the back. It's just almost as if there's this little spicy thing in the background of the aroma there. But it works really, really nicely, I have to say. I really like how all these things are going together in this one. Yeah, so lovely vanilla notes, a lot of nice milky chocolate. You can pick up some of the darker chocolate notes in there, like a higher cocoa one, 80-90% cocoa chocolate in the aroma of this beer. But yeah, I mean, you've got some brown sugars in there as well. I think there's a little bit of a kind of caramelly sort of thing. Definitely a little bit of a slightly more syrupy treacle note, some sweeter caramel, maybe a little bit of a toasty note to it as well, but still very, very nice how all these notes are going together. It's this beer, there's nothing particularly surprising about the aroma. The unusual thing, of course, is the Tonka beans, because not a lot of people will have come across those before, but it gives you this lovely sweetness. It's almost a little touch spicy, but it smells very, very smooth, and it really blends very well, actually, with the vanilla in there. It's definitely one of these really interesting adjuncts to add to your beers, and it really does work, actually. So, in terms of the aroma, it gets a big thumbs up from me. But a nice little bit of chocolate in there, some brown sugars as well. On the hoppy side of things, I mean, very smooth earthiness, which is what you'd expect. There's a little touch of a grassy floral kind of thing going on, but that's quite minimal. There is a little bit of red fruit in this beer too, but, I mean, it's got a little bit of a raisiny sharpness. You can pick that up, but mainly it's a kind of figgy, it's mainly a sort of figgy, plummy type thing that comes out of this one, and it has a little bit of it's more of a juicy fruity note, but with a little bit of raisiny sharpness in the beginning, which I have to say is really quite nice. So as I always say, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beers before you get stuck in. But this is one that I'm really curious to see how it turns out. So a huge thank you again for the recommendation for this beer. Like I say, I'm pretty sure it was David Hughes that told me this is one that I should check out, but it could also be Shredder. He's the other one that might recommend this. But thank you to whoever recommended this beer to me. I apologise for not remembering exactly who it was, but yeah, this one should be pretty damn awesome. So let's get stuck in. This is the 3 Bean Stout, an Imperial Stout at 12% ABV with cocoa, vanilla and Tonka beans, a collaboration between Lervig Aktiebryggeri in Stavanger in Norway and Way Beer from Curitiba in Brazil. Shout out to Fabrizio Rossi from Rio de Janeiro as well. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Should have said salude as well. But yeah, I have to say, that is really something pretty special, I have to say. This one is, it's one of these beers that is just, it's so unusual that you need to really just try it for yourself. And I did say the same about it was Manganilla Tonka Orange, or Tonkanilla Mango Orange from Aktiebryggeri in Gothenburg here in Sweden, and it was lovely. They put vanilla in it too, but the Tonka beans they really do work. They almost just have a little slight hotness to them, but it's nowhere near at the same level of intensity as the chili and stuff like that. But it's still it's a little bit spicy, but also sweet at the same time. It's a really interesting thing to add to a beer, I have to admit. But yeah, make no mistake about this one, this is a beautiful, beautiful beer. It really is. It's one of these ones where it's very, very well balanced. I would describe this one, if I was having to pick where on the Imperial Stout spectrum that this beer would sit, to me, this one would 100% be a sweet stout. There's no doubt in my mind about that. It's definitely a sweet stout, this beer. So let's try and break this flavour down a little bit then. So you can feel the middle of your palate just being blanketed with this sort of roasty toasty quality. On top of that, you get a really nice, you do get the nice chocolatey notes. It's quite a high percentage cocoa that comes out of this one. You're talking like 80-90% cocoa, and you can feel some of that nice roasty quality in there. And the middle of your palate definitely does dry out a little bit the further that you go into the aftertaste with this one, and the roasty qualities of the beer are sitting more towards the back of the palate there, which is nice. The dark high cocoa chocolate comes out in the middle of the tongue. I want to say there is a little bit of brown sugar in here. Yeah, in the middle of the palate for me, there is definitely a little bit of a brown sugary note in there. It's got a little bit of a slightly treacly note to it. There is a bit of that syrupy brown sugar, but it very quickly evolves to be more of a kind of sweet caramel, to be honest with you. There is a little bit of a toasty brown sugar thing in there too, but mainly it's a nice sweet caramelly element that comes out of this one. The roasty black malts, as I say, still lingering there in the back of the palate, but the vanilla is really coming out further towards the front of the tongue there, and the chocolate is infused throughout the whole thing. The Tonka beans, for me, they're quite interesting. If you go just in from the very edge of your tongue, you can feel the slight, almost, I don't know if spicy is the right descriptor for it, but you can really feel the Tonka beans just kind of coming out behind the very edge of your tongue. And it's, I don't know if spicy is the right way to describe it, but yeah, I can't think of the exact word to describe that, but you will see that just behind the front edge, behind the edges of your palate, you've got a nice you've just got that nice Tonka bean thing there, and some of the Tonka bean flavours are they're just infused throughout the whole middle of your palate there, but they really kind of come to a head, if you like, on the just before the edge of your tongue. But it's really nice. It adds a really lovely level of complexity to the beer. Yeah. That's a nice beer, this. I mean, if you get the chance to try this one, definitely have a go at it, because it's definitely very, very unusual. But I could see that a lot of people wanting to try Tonka beans in their you know, in Imperial Stouts and stuff like this after it, because it does go very well. And I was impressed with the Tonkanilla Mango Orange from Aktiebryggeri as well. It was one of these beers that was very, very strange, but it just, you know, it somehow just worked. But the Tonka beans really are very, very nice. I need to try and see if I can try some of them on their own and just see what they're like in regular food and things, but with mixing them with an Imperial Stout is certainly a good way to go. There's no two doubts in my mind about that. On the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness out of the beer there, and as you come further forward, that does smooth out a little bit. You get a little touch of a floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate, then round the very front curve of the tongue, the beer is just a little bit lighter and more grassy. but mainly it's a nice dark earthiness you're getting from this one, and that actually does blend very well with the Tonka beans and that slightly spicy character that they've got. But the smoothness of beans, I've always been a big fan of black beans and stuff like this. If you know, if I was ever to go vegetarian, I would probably live off beans. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But you can feel that sort of beany smoothness just spreading across the middle of the palate there, which is really quite nice. Yeah, this beer, the level of complexity in this beer is pretty good. It's definitely not the most complex Imperial Stout that I've come across, but it certainly has everything that you would expect. On the front of the palate, as you move further towards the front of the palate, I think there's a little touch of a woody note in there, and the vanilla flavours are really kind of latching on to that, to be honest, and the milky chocolate just comes out a bit behind that, and you've got the roasty black malt backbone and the Tonka beans just kind of mixing in with that. This beer's all about how these flavours kind of fit together. This one really doesn't do anything surprising, but it's a beer that's kind of remarkably well crafted. I think it's fair to say that about this particular beer. But yeah, the hoppy side of things is nice too. The fruity side of this beer is quite interesting because it's quite reserved in that regard, I would say. Yeah. So to me, this is it's a fairly figgy Imperial Stout. This one, it does become a little bit more. It has a little teeny bit of sharpness in the beginning. So you do get a little bit of a kind of raisiny note to this one, but then it becomes very, very figgy and very juicy, to be honest with you. Very figgy and very juicy the further you go into the aftertaste. But the Tonka bean flavours really push their way out a little bit later on. You get some of the vanilla linger in there as well, and some of the darker chocolates and roasty black malts pushing their way out too. So to be honest with you, in the end of this beer, it really starts to become a bit more dry and dark and almost a little touch spicy, to be honest with you. I mean, if you like, I've got a feeling that if you like chili stouts and you like sweet stouts, probably the best way to describe this beer is that it is actually some kind of hybrid. I mean, I was never a great fan of chili stouts. Some of them could be really nice if it's just a very subtle chili, but I was never a great fan even of spicy food and stuff like that, so chilies were never my my kind of cup of tea, if you like. But the way everything goes together in this one is really nice. This is probably somewhere in the middle of a sweet stout and a chili stout, but it leans more towards the sweet stout side of things if I just want to upgrade my kind of classification of this beer that I had earlier on. But yeah, it really does work, this one, and I like how everything goes together in this beer. It's an unusual one to try and describe for you. It really is one that you probably just have to have a go at yourself and see how you get on. In terms of the mouthfeel of this beer then, definitely a full-bodied beer. Carbonation is very, very smooth. The mouthfeel overall, I would say it's mainly an oily mouthfeel. There is a little touch of a creamy note in there that I would probably hazard a guess is more associated with the vanilla side of things. Nice little bit of hoppy bitterness, bit of a roasty, malty backbone too. I think we're talking somewhere in the region of 60-70 IBUs out of this beer. Good little bit of malty sweetness, nice bit of hoppy bitterness as well, and also a bit of juicy fruity note. But to me, this one, it's a sweet stout, but it just has that little spicy edge to it from the Tonka beans. But yeah, this has been a really enjoyable one to review, and yeah, it's one that you definitely just need to have a go at for yourself and see how you get on. So yeah, big thank you to whoever recommended this beer to me. It has been a pleasure to review this one. So keep the recommendations coming. You guys always seem to unearth some really interesting beers, and it's cool to review one of the more unusual things from Lervig, and also to encounter whey beer for the first time. I really do want to review some more Brazilian beers for you at some point soon. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Lervig Aktiebryggeri and also from Whey Beer in Brazil as well. It's been really cool to review another beer from both of those breweries. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I will catch you guys very soon. This is the 3 Bean Stout, a collaboration beer between Lervig Aktiebryggeri in Stavanger in Norway and Whey Beer from Curitiba in Brazil. One of the more unusual stouts that I've come across, somewhat along the lines of a hybrid between a chili stout, if you like, with a little bit of the spicy and hotness, but mainly more of a sweet stout, but definitely one of the ones that has some of the more unusual flavours that you're going to come across. But once again, thank you, and I will catch you guys very soon. Until the next time, Stavanger just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Stavanger, skål, salude.